The common belief that idioms such as "save by the bell" and "working the graveyard shift" originated due to live burials has been discredited. However, the fear of being buried alive was more than just a mythos in 19th century culture. On the 25th of August, 1868, Franz Wester received a patent for a security coffin that included an air inlet, a ladder, and a bell, so that if anyone was buried alive, they could alert others above ground and then claw their way to freedom. In his 2002 book, Buried Alive, The Terrifying History of Our Most Primal Fear, Dr. Jan Banderson says that some 19th century European pamphlets noted 1/10 of the populace was actually buried alive. This percentage wasn't accurate, said Banderson, but the fear was not unfounded either. Number 10. Countess Emmer of Edgecumbe. During the Enlightenment, European intellectuals increasingly privileged theories verified by rigorous testing and recording of data. This approach was applied to the medical sciences. In the 18th and 19th centuries, various brutal tests were developed to determine whether an apparent corpse was actually lifeless. Still, not everyone who was buried was actually dead. According to the myths, Countess Emmer of Edgecumbe was pronounced dead in the mid-18th century. She was buried in the family mausoleum. A church sexton who attended Emmer's burial returned to the gravesite intending to exhume the body and steal the ring that she was buried with. As the sexton slipped the ring from Emmer's finger, Emmer awoke, still wrapped in a burial shroud. The shocked sexton fled. Emmer returned to the Edgecumbe estate, walking half a mile. Today, the Countess's path on the estate commemorates her journey. Number 9. Saint Oran of Iona. As late as the 19th century, human sacrifices were sometimes required when the foundation for a new building was laid. This was founded on the belief that the deceased, who might be murdered if he or she were an unwilling participant, could hold up the building if he or she were buried beneath the foundation stone. According to myth, the Christian druid St. Oran of the Scottish island of Iona made an offer to his mentor St. Columba when St. Columba was building Iona Abbey in 563 AD. St. Oran offered to let St. Columba bury him alive in order to bless the abbey. St. Oran was buried alive, but his fellow churchmen kindly spared him, eventually digging him out. Afterwards, Oran said that he had had visions of the afterlife, which should have delighted the churchmen. Unfortunately, his visions had included neither heaven nor hell. Because his accounts were unfavorable to the Christian faithful, the churchmen buried St. Oran again, and this time they left him to die. Number 8. David Blaine. Taking his inspiration from Harry Houdini, whose appendix burst before he could attempt this feat, magician David Blaine allowed assistants to bury him alive. On April 5, 1999, Blaine was publicly buried in a coffin. The coffin was underneath a 3-ton tank filled with water. Buried underground, Blaine only consumed liquid for 7 days. When he emerged after a week, he was surrounded by eager photographers who had been waiting outside of his tomb. Blaine has never revealed any of the secrets behind his magic tricks. However, he has said that he regularly undergoes endurance training to extend the length of time that he can survive with a reduced amount of oxygen. Strategies to avoid hypoxic brain damage while he is limiting his oxygen intake include weight loss, holding his breath for gradually increasing periods of time, and sleeping in a hypoxic tent to increase his red blood cell count. Number 7. Mick Meaney. Builder Mick Meaney of Mitchelstown, County Cork, Ireland, eventually gave up his dream of becoming a professional boxer. Still longing for fame, Meaney dedicated himself to tirelessly pursuing another dream, breaking the existing world record for the number of days someone had spent buried alive. Since he had previously been briefly buried alive during a workplace construction accident, Meaney knew that he had the mental fortitude to stay calm while being buried underground. His preparation included eating a diet entirely of steaks, although, he did allow himself to also have cigarettes. For 3 weeks, he also staged workouts, doing partial press-ups in a large open coffin that his agent had placed in the Admiral Lord Nelson pub. On February 21st, 1968, Meaney invited reporters to what he called the Last Supper at the pub. That night, the coffin closed with Meaney inside. It was lifted onto the back of a truck. This coffin was then lowered into a hole and buried 7 feet underground. By the time he was buried, Meaney's coffin had been fitted with 2 pipes, one for food and one for speech and ventilation. Meany could release his waste through a hatch in the coffin. Meany had considered every element of his stunt except for one. He had never informed his wife, Alice. She learned about his plan through a radio report. Meany stayed underground for 61 days, beating Digger Odell's previous record of 45 days. Unfortunately, unlike Odell's, Meany's achievement was never recorded in the Guinness Book of World Records. He was deemed ineligible since no Guinness judge was present when he climbed out of the coffin. The time Meany spent buried alive, it spoiled his life. Though he was offered an advertising deal with the razor company Gillette and a world tour, neither came to fruition. His daughter, Mary, claims he spent his entire life trying to recapture his elation upon emerging from the soil. Though Meany's triumph eventually brought him sorrow, others found his experience humorous. At his wake, the priest delivering Meany's eulogy said, "I've never buried someone who has been buried before." Number 6. Gaya Beauty. In 2009, South Korean archaeologists created a full-scale model, a digital recreation of facial and physical features based on information from a then 1,500-year-old skeleton. A 16-year-old with a wide face, slender fingers, and a long neck, her grace charmed contemporary observers. She may have possessed natural beauty, the archaeologists who exhumed her say, but she lacked prestige. An examination of the bones in her knees revealed that she was often kneeling. This confirms that she was a servant, since servants often knelt while performing household tasks or knelt in deference to their masters. Her life may have been difficult, but her death was harrowing. By examining her skeleton, scientists confirmed that she was buried alive when her masters died, in accordance with the 6th century tradition in Japan's Gaya kingdom. Deprived of oxygen, she suffocated. Number 5. Angelo Hays. In 1937, French inventor Angelo Hays, then 19 years old, went for a motorcycle ride. He hit a brick wall, and he wasn't wearing a helmet. Because Hayes' body was disfigured by the accident, his parents weren't summoned to identify the body. As he didn't have a pulse, his doctors pronounced him dead. Shortly before Hayes' unpleasant pleasure ride, Hayes' father took out a life insurance policy on his son worth 200,000 francs. The insurance company holding the policy required an opportunity to verify Hayes' death before the money was awarded. Though his parents were resistant to the insurance company's demand, he was exhumed 2 days after burial. His body, though, was still warm because he wasn't dead. He was unconscious due to the concussion that he received during his motorcycle wreck. He survived burial because his comatose state decreased the amount of oxygen he needed to stay alive. Since his near-death appeared accidental, his parents were never prosecuted. Hayes used his experience to benefit others. He invented a security coffin with a breathing tube, toilet facilities, and a radio transmitter designed to allow those who have been wrongly buried alive to convey messages above ground. Number 4. Josef Guzy. Contemporary doctors can bring those who are legally dead back to life using automated external defibrillators, AED. However, physicians are still susceptible to human error when determining whether a patient has actually died. In 2010, Polish beekeeper Josef Guzy suffered a heart attack while tending his hives. An ambulance was called and Guzy was taken to the hospital. His attending physician said he wasn't breathing. He also had no pulse and his body was cool. The doctor pronounced him dead. Guzy was taken to the mortuary. After Guzy's body was placed in a coffin, his widow Ludmilla asked the undertaker to remove her husband's watch. When he slid the watch off of her husband's arm, the undertaker told Ludmilla that she wasn't a widow after all. He felt a pulse in Guzy's wrist. As soon as he was returned safely home, Guzy said that he thanked the undertaker by bringing him a pot of honey. Number 3. Sassi and Pannu. According to an Indian folktale, a daughter was born to an 11th century Hindu couple from the Brahmin caste. The delighted parents took their infant daughter to an astrologer who they hoped would foretell her future. They were devastated when he said that their daughter would marry a Muslim man. The detail of this folktale actually has a factual basis. The socio-cultural and socio-political tension between the Hindus and the Muslims eventually led to the formation of the country of Pakistan, which separated from India in 1947. The couple couldn't allow someone who might marry a Muslim to stay in their home, but they couldn't bear to kill their daughter. Instead, they placed their baby in a wooden box and let the box float away down the river. Atter, a launderer, was washing clothes in the river when he found the box. Besotted with the baby, he brought her home to his wife. The couple named her Sassi, meaning moon. Like many heroines in folktales, Sassi became a kind, virtuous, and beautiful woman. After he heard a troubadour praising her beauty, Punnu, a Muslim prince, was determined to meet Sassi. Posing as a merchant, Punnu brought a caravan to Sassi's village. Punnu charmed Sassi, selling her alluring perfumes. Sassi's demure grace captivated Punnu. Sassi and Punnu, they married, and Punnu vowed that he would never leave her side. Punnu's family members were alarmed by his hasty marriage, as he had not allowed his father to approve the caste and religion of his beloved. Only a Muslim princess would be a suitable wife for the prince. Punnu's brothers, they tried several times to lure Punnu back to his village. Each time, he rebuked them. Finally, Punnu's brothers tempted him with drink, and drunk, he finally agreed to leave his beloved wife. The next morning, Sassi awoke to find her husband wasn't beside her. She roamed the desert crying out for him. After a long search, Sassi was starved. Her throat was parched, her feet were bruised and bleeding. When Sassi begged the gods to protect her from the advances of a lascivious wandering shepherd, the earth opened beneath her, entombing her. Later, when Punnu was returning to his wife, he saw her shawl laying near her gravesite. When he pleaded with the gods to forgive him for leaving Sassi, her grave opened. Punnu, too, was entombed. The couple's alleged grave is located near Karachi in Pakistan. Punnu and Sassi are believed to be the only couple in a Muslim country buried in a joint grave. Number 2. Lava. In 2015, a Kurdish Iraqi woman who had asked the press to refer to her only as Lava accepted a male co-worker's offer to drive her home. In Iraq, women are only permitted to go outside when accompanied by a male family member. When she accepted a ride from her co-worker, Lava was breaking the law. Accusing her of dishonoring her family, her brothers coerced her into a car by threatening her with a gun. They drove into the mountains. When they stopped, they forced Lava to walk with her hands tied behind her back. Though she implored her brothers not to kill her, they dug a grave, pushed her into it, and buried her. Fortunately, Lava's brother-in-law convinced her father to tell him where Lava was buried. Lava's brother-in-law and sister opened her grave. Her life was restored, but her safety was still threatened until Lava left the country. Number 1. Octavia Hatcher. Octavia Hatcher of Kentucky was allegedly bitten by a tsetse fly in the late 19th century. The bite caused a blood infection. Pallid and unmoving, Hatcher was believed dead and she was hastily buried. However, others in her community who suffered similar bites gradually recovered from their blood infections. Observing his neighbor's improved appearances, Hatcher's grieving husband worried that he might have buried his wife too early. When he exhumed his wife's body, his fears were confirmed. Her nails and fingertips had been worn away when she attempted to claw out of the coffin. So on that morbid note, I'm not going to ask whether you enjoyed this video, but I do hope you found it interesting. If you did, please leave us a thumbs up below, leave us a comment, subscribe, why not, all of that good stuff. Also, why not check out another channel I do called Today I Found Out. You'll find that linked to below. If the daily content here is not enough, that channel's also daily. It's a lot of videos, it's probably enough to watch. Linked below. Enjoy. And as always, thank you for watching.